Welcome, supers, to this Shark Tank Tank Tales episode here, where I will be interviewing Joe, and I'm going to butcher his last name, even though I absolutely should not. Altieri. I don't know if I butchered it or not. I will be interviewing him. He aired on season 11 episode, and I just literally had it in front of me here about 30 minutes ago. Episode 10, my eyes are still not perfect. Episode 10, season 11 of Shark Tank, and with the flex screen product. So I need, normally I would ask for super claps in the chat, but since we're not actually live streaming this, I just clap wherever you are. Just, you're on a bus, it doesn't matter. Just start clapping. That's what I want to hear. Everybody give it up for Super Joe Altieri. I want to say like the Alteriani, but it's Altieri.
It's Altieri. We're very
Altieri.
American.
Oh, man.
Italian last name. Yep. So if you're a Sopranos fan, there was actually an Altieri, but they pronounce it Altieri. But anyway,
and the correct pronunciation is Altieri.
Altieri. Yep. So
Altieri. All right, cool. Thank you so much for being here, Joe. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I actually just reacted to your video this morning. It hasn't gone live yet. It'll probably go live a day or two before this interview. This goes out onto the channel. But for anybody who's not familiar with Flex Seal and your story, why don't we let's start like, how did you come up with Flex Seal and start with that backstory there?
Well, actually, Flex Seal is the stuff you spray on
Did I say Flex Seal?
Of a boat.
Oh my goodness! Did I really say Flex Seal? Oh, oh my goodness!
It's all good.
Flex screen. Oh my god!
So Flex screen is it's a flexible window
That's a
screen.
marketing though.
The fact that you said Flex Seal twice, they're doing a good job at what they do, sure. But Flex screen is a flexible window screen, and came up with the idea in my garage years and years ago, really based off of the problem. I've been in the window and door industry for a long time, and I have a lot of customers that are window and manufacturers. So they make the windows and doors, and window screens are the necessary evil in our business. So they're really problematic for homeowners, are really problematic for window manufacturers. And I sold a lot of traditional old style aluminum screens, and they were just a pain in the butt. So I just wanted to come up with something different, something that wouldn't get damaged as easy, was easier to take in and out. And Flex screen is the result of those efforts in my garage.
So when I was watching the pitch, and I'll get to some of the questions that more pertain to the you being on Shark Tank a little later here, but one of the things that I hate about the screens, and every time I see my kids put their hands anywhere near our screens, I'm just like, no, please don't break that. It doesn't need to be broken. I don't want to deal with this. It's such a pain to take out. It's such a pain to put in. It's such a pain to have to go and take it to one of our local hardware stores to get remeshed or rescreened or whatever the term is. I don't know, because I don't want to deal with it. I know that a lot of my neighbors and all, we all have, rental properties and stuff, especially down by the Jersey Shore. And that's something that is a recurring theme of having to redo the screens constantly because, kids poke them out or whatever. Mm-hmm. Does this, and I don't think you really demonstrated it, but my first question was, if I pushed on it, would it flex and pop out? Like, would it give enough to stop the kid or person from just like poking right through it?
So what's really cool about our product, and again, this is all physics and metallurgy and all that fun stuff, right? But so our product is a big spring. So it's a big spring that goes around on the inside of a window, and it has a regular mesh on it like your screen does. So when you push in the middle of it, what happens is the sides actually bow in, but the corners will actually stay in that little screen track, so they can push it out, a foot, 2 feet without it actually popping out. Eventually, if you push hard enough, it'll pop out. Then you have to go pick it up from the yard and go put it back in. But if somebody's just kind of leaning against it, it'll actually it'll stay in and won't get damaged like a regular screen would, but it'll stay in the window. It's again, that wasn't by design. That's just happens to be the physics of what we've done. But it's a pretty cool little trait that it has. That again was completely unexpected.
Well, I absolutely love. I mean, I love that because like I said, the other thing is always like trying to pass the cables, like a power cable or a TV cable, an HDMI cable, something through a window, a network cable through the window is always a task, and trying to pop it out so the metal's kind of like just barely kind of shifted, and you're like, please don't rip, please don't break, please don't. I don't want to deal with this problem. So I think that's really, I think it's awesome that you got into the ability to change, make that change. Now, have you always been an inventor, a tinkerer before, coming up with the flex screen, not flex seal?
My grandfather was, he was the guy, I tell this story a lot. He was the guy that had the magic coffee can, you know what I mean? Where, whenever he needed something, around his house or something like that, he would go to his coffee can and he would shake it up and pull out like the perfect thing, which I thought was the perfect thing. And here what it was he was just using what he had in front of him, right? And so, it was like, oh, well, that'll work. And he would go make it work. And so, I grew up hanging out with my grandfather a lot, and he had that mentality, what's in front of you and what's the problem you're trying to solve. And that's, I got that from him. I've always been an entrepreneur. I sold flowers for Easter and Mother's Day on a roadside stands. I was the guy. I was always out, renting DJ equipment on the weekends and doing graduation parties and stuff like that. And so, I've always had that business mindset, where I wanted to work for myself and things like that. But I still don't consider myself an inventor yet. So somebody called me that the other day. I'm like, oh, that seems so weird. But I guess, we have like 8 patents. So I guess I'm an inventor. So, but yeah, it was just one of those, it was a hobby. I was just like, man, there's this problem out here. Nothing's changed in this space for over 100 years. And like, there has to be something better. And so it was just me and the nights and weekends in my garage, just messing around. So.
Well, I absolutely love that. Now, I myself, as people that watch the channel may or may not know, I am also a DJ. What's your favorite indulgent music style?
You know what? And this is
really
weird.
Are you a freestyle guy? I take you for a bit of a freestyle guy.
I wasn't. I mean,
no,
no. Lately, I don't know why, like tropical house music has me, where, you have the dance music, but it's all set to like, more Caribbean type of stuff. I don't know. It's like
wow. I don't think I've actually heard that before. I'm going to have to go search this out.
I'm trying to get my wife to move south somewhere where it's warm and there's palm trees all the time. So I feel that like by playing this music, maybe it'll help.
Well, it very well may. That's awesome. Do you still have any equipment with around the house or anything? No,
not around the house. I mean, now with the company and I'm sitting in a podcast. I mean, we do big events and stuff like that. So I have enough equipment to do a big event. I just I don't have any equipment personally anymore though.
Okay. Yeah, I still got. So I got a controller right over here on the right. On my left. I don't get to use it as often as I'd like to. But my kids are really coming up into this idea that they want to DJ, and I mean they're 5 and 3, so we'll get there. We're getting there. But yeah,
I watch some of those guys that do it like now they're selling out stadiums. I'm like, oh my god, that would be freaking amazing.
I have a saying about was it nerds, then geeks, then pop, right? and that's the way it goes. And with that, like I was into electronic music back in the 90s, and all that, and it's like it wasn't really mainstream. There was the fringe songs, and then it wouldn't be until another till the 2010s before like electronic music really came into its own. It's like, well, we were, when we were listening to it back and then, and it's like, oh, this is incredible. Everyone's like, oh, what's that noise? And to go along with that, like, I grew up playing computer games, right? Mm-hmm. So like when, in the 90s, it was like, oh, that, it was a very fringe thing to have a LAN party over. And now that, they're selling out entire stadiums to watch like 10 people sit around their computers and compete. And it's like, we were doing this back in the, in the 90s and the 2000s, like, but not for millions of dollars worth of prizes. It was more like, hey, there's a $10,000 prize, like one, not right. Like every, the contestants are just getting 10 grand just for showing up, kind of thing.
Oh, it's incredible. Like 13-year-olds making millions of dollars, getting, promotion deals and all that stuff to play video games. Like, that's the exact opposite of what I was telling my kids. I'm like, get off the computer game. Now kids are like, I'm training, Dad. I can't do it. Like, parents are like, okay, son, that's fine.
Let's get you a $60 an hour Fortnite coach to help you get better at Fortnite.
We're it's a joke, way off topic here, man.
Oh no, but that's what that's why you do interviews, right?
I love it. Yeah.
If this was the mainstream media, you get the 3.5 minutes if you're lucky, and that's it, right? So we have the ability to talk about things that are outside the box.
This is much more fun for sure.
Well, thank you. I quite appreciate that. So first of all, I want to give you some dings. I don't know if you can actually hear the dings here. I'm hoping people can hear it. But, being able to go from 0 to 5 million in what was it, 3 years or 4 years?
4 years.
In 4 years. Like that is absolutely incredible. It was something that is new, right? And people, when there's an education process, I mean, obviously it's kind of speaks for itself, especially when you're talking about going to a manufacturer versus like, oh, let me put this on an end cap and make it sell itself. In fact, I was just talking to Larry Roberts, who anybody who's a fan of the channel definitely knows Larry Roberts. We were talking about the Lark water bottle and how I've seen it in Best Buy, and it's like, oh, here's them like fancy, Fitbit watches, and then like right next to it, it's just a water bottle that sells for like $100, and it's like there's no information or anything about it. But when you're talking about selling to an industry, it's you have that ability to like, hey, look, and you can touch and feel it and understand, which is a lot easier than just putting it on an end cap and saying, hey, this is a screen. Like, oh, I hate screens. Like, I don't want to, I don't even want to be thinking about screens in most people's cases. So congratulations on that. You're quite welcome. What made you want to get to Shark Tank? Was it your decision, or was it somebody reached out to you and was like, hey, you should, we want you to do this?
Yeah, they actually reached out to us. So we made a pretty big pivot a couple years ago. So we were, selling wholesale to the window manufacturers. That's the industry that I know. And what we were running up against was everybody in our industry said, this is awesome. We love it. It's fantastic. It answers all the problems. But the homeowners have absolutely no idea what this thing is, right? So then, I'm a part of an industry that they're not very good marketers. You know what I mean? They sell white rectangles, right? If you go out and say, hey, I want a window, you're like, okay, there's this white rectangle or this white rectangle, or maybe I have a brown rectangle, but ultimately there's not much difference between the windows. So, when you bring something new into a space that's like that, you have to figure out a way to drive the demand with a pull-through demand. And so I was trying to shove it down the manufacturer's throat, going, this is better, this is better, this is better, here's why. And it just wasn't working. So then we started doing some digital marketing. We just started putting out funny videos, me pounding screens with hammers, running them over with cars, throwing them off of buildings, all of that fun stuff. And so through those efforts, Shark Tank found us. So they actually called us up and said, hey, we saw some of your videos. We'd love to have you on the show. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's a freaking joke. Somebody's messing around with me. There's no possible way that Shark Tank is, so we ignored it, and then I got an email. Well, I got an email first that said that. And I'm like, okay, well, you can get an email that says anything. You know what I mean? So then we got a phone call, and the voicemail came up, from Sony Pictures, and I'm like, "Ooh, maybe like either somebody's really going far with this joke, like kudos to them, you know what I mean, or this is something serious." And so, got on the phone with one of the casting people, and they said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you on. We saw your stuff, we saw all of your videos, are you in? We'll send over a contract. And so so then you go through, and I'm sure you've heard this from some of your other guests. You have this like, do I really want to go on Shark Tank? To your earlier point, we did 5 million the year prior to us filming. So we did 10 million that year that we filmed. So we're this growing company. You know what I mean? We're doubling every year. And I'm like, man, I could go on and really blow this for everyone. Like this could be really bad because, most Shark Tank, most people don't get deals, and a lot of people embarrass themselves and do damage to their company. Now, again, damage is there's the Shark Tank effect happens even with companies that don't get deals and do embarrass themselves. There's still a lot of good that comes from it. But I'd have a interesting conversation with my family, going, hey, dad might go on and embarrass himself. Are you guys ready for that? And then of course with my partner saying, hey, look, this is a big opportunity. It's also a big risk. What do we want to do? And so that's what led us to, and of course, it doesn't take too long where you're like Shark Tank. It's like, it would be like the Super Bowl calling going, hey, we have an opening. Any chance you want to bring your team? You're like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. We'll play in the Super Bowl. So, that was our story of how we got on. And there's still some iterations. You still have to do some things to get on the show. There's still a couple weeks of, some videos you have to send in and working with the producers, making sure that you're not going to faint when you get in front of the cameras. But it was really quick for us. So I want to say it was, man, from the first call to me out there filming, it was like 6 weeks, 7 weeks maybe. So it was pretty fast.
I think it's interesting. Like I hadn't really known, but prior to like starting this part of my content creation journey and all, known that Shark Tank was actively reaching out to business owner, specific businesses. In my Dino Don interview, which if you haven't seen it, go get subscribe. Click the subscribe button below and go check that interview out. I was actually at his house, built in 1784, I believe it was, which is crazy. But it makes perfect sense, right? Because the producers want to make sure that there's businesses there that definitely keep the sharks as interested and as engaged as the viewers, right? And from if we just put crap deals out there, crap offerings to the sharks, like they might get tired and want to leave, and then all of a sudden, like all of them are not maybe out of a job or not out of a job, but out of a Shark Tank job, if they don't do their part as well as having people submit, plus doing the research and finding those businesses, those diamond in the roughs that aren't necessarily looking to go to Shark Tank to get the giant Shark Tank effect.
Fun story about that. If we have a minute. So one of the things about the show is you go, and you've probably heard this before, is this is all pre-COVID, right? So they fly everybody out on a Sunday, and they do it twice a year, once in July and once in September. So they fly everybody out on Sunday. On Monday, you meet up. They do a bunch of meetings and stuff like that, and then you pitch to the producers, the directors. There's about 50 people in the room, and you have to go and do your pitch in front of them. And they make it really clear. Some people are going home after this. You're not even going to make it to pitch in front of the sharks. Like, we want to see you do your thing. We'll give you some tips. We're going to look for lighting and all that stuff. So I was scheduled to film on Thursday. So again, this is Monday. Do my thing. My producing team that was working with me, they're like, oh, you did a good job. You know what I mean? We'll see you on Thursday. That kind of thing. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go home or go back to the hotel. My wife's at the hotel waiting, and we go out to dinner. And about 8:30 at night, we're just finishing up dinner, and there's the producer's cell number comes up on my phone. I'm like, oh crap, I'm freaking going home, because they said like some of you guys are going to get calls tonight, and I'm like, oh man, this is so terrible. And so anyway, I answer the phone and I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, hey, I got good news. I'm like, look, if this is one of those, like, I know you were nervous, so good news, you're going home. Like, I'm going to reach through this phone and choke you, like that. But he's like, hey, the producers loved your pitch. They want you to go tomorrow. This is a really good thing. The car will pick you up at 6. So I was supposed to, now this is like Monday night. I'm now getting picked up at 6 a.m. on Tuesday. And he's like, it's a really good thing, and I'll tell you why tomorrow. I'm like, okay, great. So get there. And I'm in my trailer. They do your makeup and all that stuff, and I go out, and Shark Tank is filmed in a huge soundstage, right? It's enormous, and then there, right in the middle of it, is the Shark Tank set, and it has all the things that you need to it's like the control room over here, and there's 150 freaking people, and off to the side in the soundstage is this little curtained off area, and that's where you go when you're on deck. So I go into there because there's one person in front of me. Now, again, I'm now the second pitch of the season for my season. So, and the producers are in there like, listen, and they're whispering because I'm in the soundstage. They're like, listen, this is a little secret that no one knows. Now I'm sharing it. And I'll probably get sued by Sony. But anyway, they said when the sharks are not actors, so when they come back after being off for so long, he said they're kind of chippy and they're nervous, and they have a lot of this nervous energy that they have to get rid of. And he said, so what we do is we give them a really bad pitch just to tear apart. And he goes, like, the reason I'm telling you is what we've also learned is that we want a really good pitch so they start investing right away. Because if we just give them bad pitch after bad pitch after bad pitch, they get bored, and then we'll actually have to stop shooting for the day, push everything back a day or two. And he said it's really bad. So the fact that you're going second in the entire season is huge because the directors think you have the best chance of everyone that they heard yesterday of getting a deal. He said, but these guys are going to it's going to be a little rough for you to hear. And when I tell you that these guys got destroyed, I mean, they got absolutely freaking destroyed. And I could hear everything that happened. So literally there's like sweat. I'm nervous to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, this is the most, anxiety ridden thing that I'll probably ever do in my entire life. And I'm sitting there listening to the guys in front of me. Like Mark Cuban was like saying, there's no doubt that there's IP in your product that I own as another investment, and you're probably going to be here from our lawyers. Mr. Wonderful's beating them up because they didn't know their numbers, like asking them, why they even came on the show. It was so bad. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, okay, like, can I run at this point? Like, how deep into this am I? But that's again, those are the things that the producers know based off of past experiences. They have to get the sharks doing what the sharks do, or they lose them. And so it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the producers reaching out to companies, because the 40, 50, 100,000 people that apply, most of them aren't very good. They're not TV worthy, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense that they would be nervous. I mean, filming yourself is a muscle. I mean, I'm filming myself on a somewhat regular basis, but even just taking 3, 4, 5 days off, it takes a few minutes to like get it going again. And I'll say, like, when I was doing I was vlogging, I was doing daily business lesson vlogs for a while there back in 2017, and I did it for 100 days in a row, and then I did some vlogs in like a month later, a week later, and every time I turned the camera back on, I'd freeze up again because it's like, oh, I'm out in public, I'm people are looking at you, like, what are you doing, and all this stuff. And so it's just one of those things where it's like it's a muscle. You have to do it. And for them to take such a long period of time off, is got to be, it's tough. It's tough. It doesn't matter how many seasons you've done. I mean, at that point, this was on season 11, right? Yep. So it's very interesting that you point that out, that they were, they are human too, right? They have the same issues, same muscles that we have to work through as speakers, as content creators, as people in the public eye, are constantly having to deal with, and some do deal with it better than others. Now, I did want to get to you pointed out a couple of things. Let's get to your pitch out there. Now, obviously, it's no secret when you walk out to into the tank, there's tons of cameras, and you stand there for, I've heard, up to like 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, while they get all the different angles and doing all the B-roll stuff that they need to do in order to clip it together. But you did have a nerve. It was abundantly clear that you were quite nervous when you first started to speak there. And I don't know if that's just they emphasized it with the editing, or if that was you coming, the nervousness really coming through because you kind of stuttered a little, not stutter. I don't know if stutter is the right word, but you kind of hesitated out of the gate with your pitch.
Yeah, heck yeah, I was nervous, man. It sucks going walking down that hallway. I'm not gonna lie, man. I could barely remember my name, let alone this pitch that they've made you memorize and also shorten. I mean, when you start working with the producers, they're like, okay, tell us your company story, write it all down. And I'm like 6 pages, right? And they're like, okay, now you need to cut that in half. And then a week later, they're like, okay, now cut it in half again. And then you get down to the point you're like, okay, what's a minute? Get it down to a minute. And you read it out for them, and they're like, okay, that was 4 minutes. Do you know what a minute is? You know what I mean? So you're literally telling your company story in a paragraph and a half. That's all the time that you have. So, and they emphasize how important that is, right? This is the pitch. This is the pitch. This is the pitch. And so it's really terrible. I listened to myself saying my pitch over and over again on the flight from Pittsburgh to LA. Like that's how important they make it seem. When it comes down to it, though, that's actually the least important part of the whole time that you're there. There's the product side where you do your pitch and they want to know about your product. And then there's the money side, which hopefully you make it through there. And then there's the deal side. But the money side is actually the much more important part of this. And I think that they don't emphasize it because they want people to screw that part up. I hate to say it like that, but Shark Tank's a TV show. They want Mr. Wonderful to have something to beat people up on. The pitch was, yes, I was nervous. To answer your question, yes, I was really freaking nervous.
But you pulled through, right? I was waiting for like the music to kick in where it's like, the moment. Yeah, and you were able to pull through that, which, kudos to you because not everybody is able to do that. And I mean, sometimes the Sharks have been nice about it. Like, okay, look, this is your one big shot. Like, let's just back off for a second, start over, and get at it. But obviously it is very. I will say this with the pitch side. I think as long as you make it abundantly clear what it is and what it does, then you've done your job, right? Like you don't have to make it super crazy for them to get it, because as long as the money side, like you said, makes sense and they feel like they can trust you after talking to you for 40 minutes to an hour, then you're probably golden, as long as the money makes sense. But yeah, if they don't even understand out of the gate, like what are we really talking about here? What's the real benefit, or they can't envision themselves with that benefit, then you're going to have a tough time at that point.
Part of what's happened over the past years is that the show has created this I don't want to say misnomer, but they want people to ramp up some sort of drama, right? So some sort of, whether it's creativity or whatever the case may be, some way of differentiating yourself from everybody else that's going to be on the show. So there's the costumes, the crazy things that people do, the terrible stories and all of that stuff. So again, they put some pressure on you behind the scenes to try to, make that more than it is. And that's just the evolution of the show. It wasn't like that the first couple seasons. It was just people coming out there and pitching their product, to your point, what it is, what it does, and hey, this is the problem that I'm solving. Now it's, now again, Dino Dave, bring those freaking dinosaurs. Don. I mean,
sorry.
The set that they put is
Joe. We're in the same boat here. I'm at Flex Seal, Flex Screen, Dino Dave. It's all good. It's all good.
But again, I had two little pop-up displays. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't have a lot to. But he brought in freaking dinosaurs, and people wear outfits, and it's incredible what the show has become. But that's not why the Sharks are making deals. They honestly, I hate to say it like this, I think they could care less about the dramatics. I think they really could care less about, and the show's real. I mean, the Sharks want to make the deals that they do on the show. I mean, they're taking notes. They're asking real pertinent questions. I was in there for 2 hours and 37 minutes. Most of it was completely uninteresting, unsexy talk about data. And that they were asking. They weren't trying to ramp it up. They weren't trying to make it more than it was. It was just help me to understand your business. Look, of course, Sony Pictures owns every single minute of that. So if they can edit it, some of those boring things together to make it seem like it was more dramatic, that's their job. They should be doing that.
Your pitch was you were in there for 2 hours?
2 hours and 30. I was the second
minutes?
longest pitch in Shark Tank. Yeah, 2 hours and 37 minutes. So at least that's what the producers told me. I haven't been around, but it was unusually long. So.
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive things about Shark Tank is other than their editors, let's ding to them for being able to cut down 40 minutes to about 7, in most cases, sometimes 5. But the ability for the Sharks to be able to crank out like 30 episodes, give or take, per season with 4 pitches per episode, when each one takes about minimum of 30 to 40 minutes minimum. That part is absolutely impressive for them to be able to crank out the amount of content that they are, with their super busy schedules and everything involved. That is awesome.
It is, and a third of the people that go in front of the Sharks don't actually air. They cut about 30%. So if you can imagine, you look at the whole season and then add another 30% onto that. That's how many they actually shot. It's nuts. I know, again, my season, they did 4 weeks of filming, and they filmed from Tuesday to Saturday, pretty much, sun up to sundown. They work really, really long hours during those 4 weeks. So
it's definitely, and it's grueling for the whole team. I mean, as a person who does video production and stuff for other people as well as myself, like it's a grueling process to go through, even just the star in it, to be there and on, and be able to mentally write your notes down, right, and make sure that what's going on around you for that long period of time is pretty incredible.
It is.
So my question related to your pitch: how did you decide that the best way was to whip out the hammer and start beating on it versus like doing a thing where you like come out and like I'm gonna punch the screen or like do something crazier over the top? I mean, the hammer was over the top, but was that a rubber mallet?
It was, and the rubber mallet was based off of, again, that's what. We brought out a hammer. They said use this instead. You know what I mean? We actually have like rubber mallet gate. It's a kind of like an ongoing joke because again that'll play. We'll get because we've been on a couple times. Through COVID, they did a lot of reruns of Shark Tank, and invariably we get people going, "That wasn't a hammer. That was a rubber mallet." And you're like, "Okay, look, try doing that with a regular screen with a rubber mallet. Like that's what they gave me. I said it. I brought a hammer. They didn't want me to use a hammer. They gave me this big rubber mallet. It'll still do the same amount of damage. So, but yeah, people online, man, they go crazy. Like you say it's not a hammer, but no, it was just there's a producing team that works with you, and their whole job is to get you onto the show. So I had 2 guys that helped help me really get our pitch going. My team, I have a communications director and I have some creative people, as we were, doing content, they were helping me create the pitch from our side. And the hammer just seemed like it was, I don't know. It just worked. You know what I mean? The other thing too, we watched a lot of episodes and you don't want to do anything that you're not sure how it's going to work out. Right. So, you go punch something, you could do it 100 freaking times. Right. And it works perfect. And that one time that you're in front of the cameras, that's the clip that ends up going over and over again because you break something, you shoot, Damon in the face with a screen, whatever the case may be, like something outside of your control happens. The hammer was something that we thought we could control. So that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the Tesla Cybertruck comes to mind, throwing a metal ball at a window and then it like, oh, this won't break. And then it shatters right there in front of everybody. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's just throw it again anyway because we're already doing it for the meme at this point. Yep. We're committed. I think that's a fair point. And the rubber mallet, like it was a hammer and it still got the point across. I don't know, maybe it was a safety thing or a Which, I mean, I wouldn't want my face bashed with a rubber mallet. It probably still hurt. like, but it might have been. My first thing that comes to my mind is a camera thing. It might, the rubber mallet is bigger than a hand, unless you get like an oversized like clown hammer or something. It comes up better on the camera. I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, they were also worried about, because all the furniture out there is theirs. So like the little box that it was sitting on is theirs. They were worried about me damaging their box and stuff like that. And again, it could be anything. Like, hey, look, if this idiot's gonna smash his hand, because he's distracted, better with a rubber mallet than a hammer. I don't know, less blood, but maybe more blood would be better. Maybe
better for insurance purposes. So all right, let's move through the pitch a little bit. So did you have Lori? Now, for anyone who isn't watching, again, get subscribed, go watch. The video will already be posted. I'll try to link it down below or up here in the corner or something like that. But did you have Lori in mind going into this?
Actually, we did. It was, the deal that we had struck. We had watched Barbara do something similar, where again, I'm sure you'll talk about this a little bit, but the deal was to split off the retail side. And literally, I said to my partners, I'm like, if I could get Lori to do a deal like this, this is the perfect scenario. And because one of the things that I practiced was the deal side of it. What if somebody asked this? What if somebody wants to do this? What if and I didn't want to, again, I wanted to be as prepared as I could possibly be. I mean, I watch people go out there and then they get to the deal side. They're like, no, you should have that. Like, you should know what you're willing to accept and where you're at and who you want to be with. And so we had that all worked out. I mean, there was, my partners grilled me for 2 weeks leading up to Shark Tank. And we did it as if I was live, like no notes. Like, what do you do if they have this question that you don't know? Like, you have to figure it out. Like, Sony Pictures is filming this. How are you going to answer that? So, and we role played the deal side of it too. So it was really easy once we got to that point to figure out who we were going to go with. And Lori was number one.
Yeah. Oh, you weren't tempted by Barbara's brother?
Barbara was in filming. Barbara was by far the most fun shark. She was a blast. She made everything so. I was really tempted by her offer simply because I wanted to do business with her. Because she was so much fun just to talk with, and she jokes around, and she's a little bit crude. So it's really interesting because you do get to pick up their real personalities, not the personalities that the show wants to portray.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, look, people have, when you think about filming and stuff like that, like, people have a short attention span, so it's easier for them to latch on to. That's why, like, we watch I don't watch a lot of TV at all, but when you watch any reality TV show, they have the good guy, the bad guy, the nice guy, or girl, guy, girl's employed. No, implied here. But, you have the good person, the bad person, the business person, the I'm going to screw everybody over person, the deal maker person, and it's easy to just attach those taglines or those descriptions or those the titles to those people, and it's easier for people to digest and follow along with. Now, you talk about partners. Now, one thing that didn't come on the pitch, unless I missed it, because I do one take and live, and that's it when I do it. But it didn't sound like you mentioned your partners there, or what percentage you owned, and if it would have made a difference giving up, say, 20% to Kevin versus, and I'm looking at my notes here, versus the 6% or 10%.
Yeah, and we actually because of our because of the way that our company is structured, and the clauses that we have in our contracts, with our partners, we actually never disclosed, the percentages and stuff like that. So it was like, again, that was one of the questions, like, how much do you own? Like, we prefer not to disclose that, and
wow.
Yeah.
And they were, and because to me, that would be like a sticking point. That would be like the panic, but like, like that might cause at least 1 to 2 people dropping out right there, because, Damon's really good for trying to sniff out whether or not you actually even own enough of the business to give away? Like, are you actually the owner at that point versus, well, I own 23% and everybody else owns, smaller percentages, but I mean, it makes it like a difficult situation for them to come in.
They made it really clear. They said, do you control the company? I'm like, yes, I control the company. So again, it was one of those types of conversations. Like, hey, look, we didn't amend our bylaws to be able to do this. If that prohibits you from doing a deal, no, we're sorry. But they also do diligence behind the scenes. You know what I mean? The show actually does diligence. So they would make sure that the sharks aren't going to get into something, that they're certainly not going to close eventually.
You're laundering money through Flex Screen
exactly.
for cocaine distribution out of the South.
The People's Republic of China owns 89% of Flex Screen. So no, but yeah, I do have equity partners, and we're.
Which, I mean, honestly, it makes sense that you would, to be able to, and I think that a lot of people don't quite understand that part of when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, is that unless you're self-funded, like you've already made your millions, to scale up to, 1 million, to 3 million, 5 million, $10 million requires a lot of capital, right? For inventory, for things that are going to go wrong. There's just so much money that has to be able to be there. It takes money to make money, right? And I feel like I haven't heard that. I feel like I haven't heard that saying often enough lately. From enough people to understand that, anything could scale up to $10 million, but it does take money. And if you're not making enough profit, which in your case, it sounded like you weren't making enough profit, but I applaud you for taking the long road, and in some cases painful road, of let's be the industry standard, right? Let's make it so that every person has that just becomes the standard thing after 2025 or something, all Windows going forward, just that's what it is. And then in 20 years from then, it's synonymous with Windows. Like you just don't get it without. Like you can't even custom order it. Like, oh, I want my metal one that's going to break and not, give me an extra foot or 2 foot of bend room when my kid puts his, fist through it.
Yeah, it was interesting because they got it. Again, the show is there to ramp up drama and to get people to view it, right? So, I think we showed $10,000 or something like that in profit. And they, of course, they could do oh my goodness, they only made $10,000 on 5 million in sales. And you're like, okay, look, we all know what I'm doing with this money. Like, we're putting it back in to continue growing because, to your point, you need money to continue to scale. Like, there's no possible way you go from 5 million in sales to 10 million in sales and try to pocket a couple $1 million through that, unless you're doing the drop shipping. Like, hey, I'm buying this in China for $3, and I'm selling it over here for $30. Cool, I get that. That's great. It's a great way. That's just not our product. We're all custom made, and we're made in the U.S. I mean, just to scale up from, again, most of our customers buy on terms, right? Because we're selling to window manufacturers. So if you can think about, we're doing millions of dollars a month now. So I'm, my customers are in the hole for me for millions of dollars every single month because they're not paying for 30 days afterwards. So again, it's bottom line, what you can take home from a business that's growing as fast as ours is it makes good TV, but they understood the why once we started talking more.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners, a lot of them don't understand what it feels like to have $1 million on the street waiting for that to come in. And especially if you're not just like, ooh, I have, because that's a whole nother set of problems. So like, right. Oh, I only have four manufacturers I'm sending these to. Well, if just one of them doesn't send me the money and they happen to be like the biggest whale of the four, then I'm really up, a creek without a paddle, especially if I don't have the funding to be, again, money to fix those problems, to smooth out those problems. I've been there, right? We've had like over $1 million on with one customer, and when you only have like 3 or 4 million, well, I'll say only 3 or 4 million on the street, it's a problem when that customer seems like they might be filing for Chapter 11 soon. It's like, oh, Billy, am I going to get paid? They're a huge player in the market, and they'll probably get out of it, but Will they? I don't know. That's a huge gamble on the whole, the whole enchilada there. So I, during my reaction, which I'm sure you'll probably watch when it
Oh,
when
I
it
can't
goes
wait
live.
to watch it.
It was actually tough because I don't know enough about the window industry to be able to I think I did a decent job, but I'm looking forward to getting your reaction to it. I did ask, like, did the money matter? Because it's hard when you don't know what percentage you own. Is the valuation matter, right? And I always say, like, if you own 100% of the company and they're like, oh, we're not taking your 10% offer, we want to get 20 or 25%. Does that really make a difference if you're the only person owning the business, right? It's not like you're trying to appease other shareholders or anything like that. And ultimately, if the goal isn't really to sell the business anyway, does your evaluation right now really, really matter unless you have a very specific need for that amount of cash to make it, like, oh, we're going to take this and we're going to do this and this and this and play out this plan, which, depending on which shark you get, might have a whole different plan in place, kind of like how Barbara put the wheels in motion for, like, hey, let's get this in consumers' hands. Let's make that happen.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm understanding your question or where you're going with this, for us, the money didn't matter. I don't know how else to say it. We, even when we were talking to the business consultant, and there is a business consultant that will help you with your valuations, help you with your asks. Again, just these crazy facts. Less than 20% of the people that go on the show, and this business consultant works for the show, has been there since the first season, and he's there. Wow. He is there to help you not be an idiot in front of the sharks. I don't know how else to say that. And I'm like, and we took days of his time. Like, me and a couple of my partners, because we wanted to understand, because Shark Tank's it's not just a TV show, it's also a game, right? And we didn't understand the rules of the game until we talked to him. If you ask for, $5 million, you can't leave Shark Tank with $2 million. You know what I mean? And we didn't understand that, so our first ask was, I don't know, 1.2 million or something like that. We were going in and asking for, and he's like, look, if you do a $1 million ask, he's like, very, very, you probably won't get a deal. There's only been, I think, one deal that's been over $1 million. And he said, if you ask for $1 million, you have to come out of there with $1 million. You can't come out with 900. They can't change the amount of cash that you leave with, that was really valuable to us.
That weird. I never really thought about that. I mean,
Yeah, you have to come out. Now they can structure it as loans, they can structure it as equity, they can, lines of credit, all of those types of things, but you have to leave with at least the amount of money that you asked for. They can't do anything less. See?
I don't think I knew that, because
I didn't know that.
But now I'm starting to think about it. Is that new? Is that a new?
No. It's been that way. It's
or is it based on the valuation?
No, they'll change your valuation.
Because they'll be like, yeah, like, we'll change, like, because if you wanted, and anybody who watches the shows knows that my math out of my head isn't always the best, but if you were like, oh, I want $1 million and I want 20% for what would that be? 5
million.
For 5 million, or no, 20, not for $1 million, not for $1 million. No, I want $1 million total. So $1 million valuation. So 20,000 for 20%, right? Okay. That would 5 times 2.
Easy math, awesome.
Yes, right. So, but they would be like, well, I'll give you half that for the same or for a drop in valuation.
No, you still have the same cash.
Think about that.
So they might be like, okay, so let's just use really easy, stupid numbers, right? $100,000 for 10% of the company. It's $1 million valuation, right? They're like, okay, your company is not worth $1 million. We'll still give you the 100,000, but now we want 20%. So it's only a $5 million valuation. But they still have to keep the cash the same. Now they might say, we'll give you, $50,000 in cash, $50,000 as a loan or a line of credit, but you have to come out with the same amount of cash. And again, I didn't realize that until we had this conversation. Then I watched through some episodes. I'm like, they never changed the cash. That, like, 100%. He's why would I doubt him? You know what I mean? Since he works for the show.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so you can give away more of your company. You can structure deals different ways, but you can never change the amount of cash that you ask for. So, but yeah, so but we were, we were looking for a reason for the money, right? That's the other thing that you have to give them is, why do you want the money?
Yep.
So for us to open up a new manufacturing plant, it cost us about $800,000. So that's when when we were asking for money, we are like, okay, what do we need the money for? Because we had a lot of money in the bank, so we just didn't need it, but we needed a reason that we were going on the show. So that's where that 800,000 came up from. So like, okay, when they said, well, what are you going to use your $800,000 for? Because you don't need inventory, because you're not buying things, you're making things. Like, okay, we want to open up a new manufacturing plant, and that's what I need this money for.
Okay, yeah, and you know what, the money thing makes sense. I like, as I'm trying to justify that in my mind, I think maybe it's for a simplicity sense of the viewer, as one of the things, because like if you start opening up the door to like different dollar values, then it just change. What would take 40 minutes or even an hour could end up taking a lot longer, because now you're talking about a totally different ball game at like, oh well, you wanted $1 million, but I'll give you 300,000 for this, and it just kind of complicates it complicates everything, really. And from an editor standpoint, that makes it even more difficult, because you're trying to make sure that you can tell the story in a way that the people watching it actually can follow it. And to your point earlier about the drama doesn't sell, right? Like it keeps people watching, but nobody's going on Good Morning America the next day because of the drama, that I know of, at least. They're going on because, oh, we had this amazing product, and you should totally go check out our new water bottle from lttstore.com and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's the thing that they're going to be able to get the press about, not the drama of like, oh, so-and-so said this, because the odds of that are so low. I mean, just look at like American Idol, for example, right? Like, I think only like one or two people that have ever come through American Idol who weren't the winners or in the top 10 have made a huge enough splash to actually like go on to do something, to
Right.
get that notoriety. William Hung is one of the people that come to mind, and the other guy that had that saying, "Can you dig it?" Like, outside of those two people, and in like 20 years of doing American Idol, that's just, it just isn't the drama or the viewer reason to watch is not going to get you that level of attention that you're looking for outside of the show.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
So okay, so it's been a while since you've been on Shark Tank. That was a year and a half ago, I think it was.
Yeah, January of last year. Yeah, almost exactly a year and a half.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so you would still classify it as a success, a successful endeavor, I would hope.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And we did finish our deal with Lori. Again, one of those behind the scenes secrets. Not all the deals that you see on the show actually go through. There's a diligence period that people have to, you have to kind of show what's behind the curtain, and the Sharks want to understand that, and their lawyers get involved, and sometimes there's things that change. Our deal changed a little bit. Lori Grenier is actually an equity partner. On the show, we were supposed to do a completely separate retail company, and another company came in and made us a really good deal on taking our product to the Lowe's and Home Depots of the world. And so we changed our deal with Lori, and Lori was great with it. So she's actually an equity partner of ours, and working with her and her team it's been pretty incredible. There's still these surreal moments where I'll get a phone call on like a Friday at 7:00, and Lori's out walking her dog, and she's like, "Hey, I had this idea," and I'm like, I look at my phone, I'm like, this is freaking Lori Grenier like calling me. Like, this is so weird. But we launched on HomeDepot.com. There's going to be displays coming up, this summer. Hopefully by the end of summer, they just everything just got approved for the display, so we start seeing it on the floors. So and all of that is because of Shark Tank. We would have got there eventually, but man, does Shark Tank fast forward on some of those things. It really does. The attention. We had a consultant look at, again, part of our reasoning for going on. We had a consultant look at what would it cost to get the same attention as Shark Tank. If we went out and bought media to get the same attention as Shark Tank, what would it cost us to do that? And he came in somewhere between $15 to $16 million. And we're like, well, I'm not going to spend $15 million on advertising. So it's probably this is a great way to do it, you know? So it does. It just gets a lot of attention. And then having one of the sharks in your corner, you know, they're not into the day-to-day. Some sharks are more in it than others, but they're there as a resource. You know, when it comes down to, again, the displays that we're doing for Home Depot, Lori and her team were integral in making them look the way that she wanted them to look, which is not my expertise. So having her in my corner to be able to help with that is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, that it's invaluable, right?
It is.
Because you still don't really know how far this is going to go once you put it into a Home Depot. Like, you can project, but just, you know, having that Shark Tank effect, plus putting it into Home Depot, plus the fact, I mean, Lori's done so many end cap, you know, displays and big, you know, in-store displays that it's, you know, it's gonna be awesome. I'm looking forward to being able to see it at my local Home Depots in the coming months here. Now, with that said, so when you decided that, and I went to your website and I saw that you have a measuring stick, which looks like an old school pointer, like pointing device. What is that? Is that something that's part of the retail experience, like going and getting your pointer and doing it, you know, to measure it, or how does that work?
So the which has been branded as Flextenna. It does. It looks like an old antenna.
That's
like
right.
Old school antenna, like that you used to have on a, you know, little AM radio. And so what we came across, one of the pivots that we made was, you know, we did about $1 million in sales online before Shark Tank. So the year before Shark Tank, we did about $1 million in sales. But the struggle that we had was we would get people that are like, we love this, we can't read a tape measure, or how do you measure our windows and all that stuff. So we were just brainstorming and came up with this idea. We sent it out to some homeowners that placed orders on our website. And like I said, we did this really ugly mock-up of that and said, like, here's how you use it. You know, you kind of expand this out, then you take it out of the window, then you measure that, and that tells you how wide it is. And then, you know, so yeah, I mean, on the website, you know, you get one of those whenever you place an order. But then in Home Depot and or, you know, well, right now Home Depot, you can actually go and buy one for a couple bucks. You take it home, do your measurements, and then you go on homedepot.com/flexscreen, or you scan the little QR code, and then you can put your measurements in right there, and then the screen shipped to, you know, directly to you at your home. So,
so I won't be able to just go buy one at Home Depot. I have to buy the Flextenna and then do the measurements and take the next step.
For some of the windows that they have in stock, so you know, if they have like standard sizes, they'll have standard size flex screens in a display. So like, hey, if you bought this window and you want a flex screen, you know, you can buy this one. But for the most part, if you're doing them for your house, you're probably going to need to do them custom sized. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that we make that as easy as possible. So until Apple comes out with the perfect measuring device where we can just kind of take a picture and it tells you, which we're working on that stuff. You know, some of that VR stuff is pretty close, but we had to go old school and come up with something mechanical to help.
The only question I have about the Flextenna, you said you put it like, so I would put it in where the tray, you know, or the, I don't know what you would call it, but the groove for where the screen goes. How do I get it out of the groove? Like
just like that move that you just did right there. Yeah.
Okay, do one of these.
So, okay. Yeah, you just kind of like you just kind of tip it up, and then you can kind of bring it
Pull
back
it out.
in.
Okay,
without messing with the measurements.
I would be so nervous that I would be messing with the measurement.
It's actually, you know, the old school antennas used to be really easy to, you know, go in and out. This one actually has a lot of friction. So good. So we actually created it so that it's, you know, it takes a little bit of effort to actually push it out, and then once you push it out, it wants to stay there. So,
is there a decent amount of tolerance, like within, say, like a quarter, like if it's a quarter inch off or something like that, or is that?
Yeah, we have these little things. We call them bumpers, but it's essentially a little it's a little thing that it has adhesive, and it goes on the corners if you need them. So if it's a little bit loose or something like that, you can put these little things on that take up some space. They compress, and it helps to hold it in the.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
So like I
great.
said,
That's great.
we try to think of all the things, and this is also feedback too. You know, I mean, customer calls up and says, "Hey, I measured my windows wrong." Well, by how much? Well, 1/16 of an inch. Oh, okay. Well, that's easy. You know, we'll figure something out to.
Put the bumper on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Educating
No, that's
people on how
great.
to do a tape measure is the worst part, man. People do not know how to read a tape measure anymore. It's nuts.
I mean, I think we learned how to do the measuring thing like in like third grade or something. That was a while ago at this point, but I for the most part know how to read it. The quarter inch, the eighth inch, and then there's 16th inch.
16th, yep. And yeah, they can go
then
down to about a 32nd, which is really, really
Oh
small.
wow.
But next evolution, once it's in the stores, then Home Depot will have Home Depot, Lowe's, all these big guys. They also have their own teams that go out and they'll actually measure for you. Again, that's not happening anytime this summer, but that'll be the next step where they charge you $50. They come out and do all the measurements, and then you go back and pick them up after we produce them and install them in your windows.
So before we talk about your podcast, which you have a great looking setup there, by the way, there, Joe. What's the future of Flex Screen? What's it looking like?
Man, we're still growing like a weed. We keep doubling every year, which is
dang.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's funny right now. You know, we're doing more in a week than we were doing than we did our entire first year of business. So to scale that fast is nuts. So we continue growing. Right now, our growth is really limited by the capacity of what we can make. It's tough. Right now the labor market's really difficult to hire people and get stuff moving. So, but we're looking at more manufacturing locations and just continuing to grow. It's been a lot of fun. I have a lot less hair and a lot more gray in it over the last couple of years, but no, it's fantastic. And what's fun about what we're doing is, I think you had mentioned it earlier. We're in this for this is the long play for us. So the window manufacturers that are making flex screen standard, they're offering it to their customers, which then feeds the retail, because eventually screens wear out and stuff like that happens, and the only place that they can get a screen to replace it is back to our retail. And the retail actually also drives the demand for the homeowners. They see it at Home Depot and Lowe's and all that stuff, and they're like, why am I buying a window with this garbage old style screen on it? Why don't I have flex? So again, it's just this big circular demand that we're really excited about, because we're starting to see the snowball happen with all that.
That's awesome. I hope your profit margins have improved since then, which I'm guessing by the prices that I saw on the website, I'm guessing that they're much more healthier than they were when you were on Shark Tank.
Yeah, they are. And again, a lot of it's, a lot of our profits in the early years, it goes to infrastructure. You have to build a machine. When I say machine, I'm not talking about a physical machine, but you have to build a company, getting the right people in place and all that stuff. You don't need 10 more, admin people just because you've doubled or tripled. The same people can handle, more work or the right amount of work as you're getting bigger. And also the other thing to keep in mind, though, with the prices you see is, you have a lot of things wrapped up into getting a screen to Home Depot. They have to make money. FedEx has to make money. And, there's a lot of people that have to make money before the homeowner finally touches the cardboard people where we to wrap those and send them through the mail. There's a lot of costs that get associated when you're selling retail that, again, I had no idea. I'm like, man, if you can make it for $10 and sell it at Home Depot for $60, you should be making a lot of money. We're like, no, that's not really the case. But it's still it's great business, and we're really proud to be working with Home Depot and some of the other big boxes as they launch with us too.
That's awesome. So, but right before we get to about your show and how people can reach you and all that, Joe, did you grow up in thinking you would be in the flex screen business, in the screening business, the window business?
I didn't. But it's funny because as like I said, I've been in the window and door industry for about 20 years, and I had been. One of the things that I sold was traditional window screens. So one of the companies that I represented was a company that made window screens. And so I've became through the years kind of a screen expert, a screen geek. And now that, with inventing something new, I'm like, this is like such a weird thing to brag about. Like, I'm the world's foremost expert in window screens, which is, again, I guess if you're going to do something, sure, that's something to brag about, I guess. But it's, no, this is not something anybody ever dreams of. Now I am living, I say it all the time. It's like so cliche, but I'm living my dream. You know what I mean? To make something in your garage that that does as well as our company has, our product has, and then to have the notoriety of Shark Tank. I mean, geez, oh man, it's through all of the craziness that is my life and the ups and downs. But I have to hold on to that. That man, this is something that a lot of people don't get to do, and I'm so grateful for everybody that's helped me get there. So no, I never thought I would. I had no idea what a window screen was growing up, but now that I'm here, I'm really proud of the team, and I'm really grateful that I am here.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So tell everybody about your show. Like, why you got this nice setup here that, most people don't necessarily have set up at their home or office.
Yeah. So, being one of the Shark Tank entrepreneurs, you join a group of people that have a common experience. And so we as entrepreneurs get together. We have a Facebook group. There's about 600 people in that group. We have local meetups. We're actually meeting up in a couple months down in Atlanta. We do Zoom meetings. And so all of the Facebook or all of the Shark Tank entrepreneurs have gotten a chance to know each other. And rely on each other and bounce stuff off. And I started writing a blog right after Shark Tank hit called Lessons from the Tank. And there was just business lessons or life lessons based off of some things that I experienced through Shark Tank. And I was chit-chatting with a couple of the entrepreneurs that I had gotten to know. So it'd be really neat to do a podcast about this because we've learned such amazing things, good things, bad things. And I think that there's some value here that we can give back to the world, if anybody wants to listen. And Shark Tank is so popular that we think that we can probably get some traction here. And so I bounced it off of some of them and said, look, I'll run with it if you guys are willing to participate. And so we started the Lessons from the Tank podcast. And so we're a couple episodes in. Episode number 1 was with Tiffany Crumans, who was season number 1, episode number 1, deal number 1. So she's the Ava the elephant. Wow. And she is such a fantastic person. And just listening to her, like literally, she went on Shark Tank, got to deal with Barbara, and then had a cancer diagnosis and had to go through cancer treatment, like all in the same year. And again, Shark Tank, this is first year, right? So she's doing like publicity tours with Barbara, like arm in arm, like like they're promoting this as she's going through as she's going through cancer treatment. And so like these are real people. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is we're just a bunch of knuckleheads who happened to run businesses and got some fame. You know what I mean? We got some notoriety that propelled us in front of millions and millions of people. But we're still figuring this out through all this. None of us are experts. Even the people that have done really, really well, like Squatty Potty and Scrub Daddy and things like that, they're still figuring this out. And so, we were like, man, if it would be great to talk about our experiences and try to help some young entrepreneurs, and when I say young, I mean not young of age, but young in the journey of being an entrepreneur or a business leader or product development and things like that. So we it's called Lessons from the Tank. You can go to lessonsfromthetank.com and or search for it on any of your podcasts of choice or YouTube or whatever. So that was a long. I hope I didn't take up too much time.
No,
about my podcast.
Not at all. You absolutely should. Hey, I run. I don't know if you know this, Joe. I run the Independent Podcast Conference that is out here in Philadelphia, and we run an event every single year. This year, September 11th, 2021. It's only a single day event because, well, people aren't coming from overseas this year to be a part of the event. So, I was like, instead of doing a 3-day event, we'll do a 1-day event. We get together, maybe we'll do something on that Sunday afterwards and have a good time doing something a little bit different this year.
Sure.
But yeah, so I love podcasting, love the love the fact that you're trying to bring the Shark Tank business owners together and help other business owners, and there's so much there. I mean, that's one of the reasons I've been doing podcasting since 2014 and business lessons for entrepreneurs and all that since then and all that. So I absolutely adore the fact that you're doing it and bringing people together. You got such a great setup there, and have the connections to bring those people together. And Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I know we definitely went way over the time that we had allotted for this, so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and talk about your experience and give some more insight to the behind the scenes. Hopefully, I know we have some business owners that are listening that are trying to make their way onto Shark Tank. So it's great to hear those lessons and just some of those behind the scenes. Hopefully, Sony doesn't give any lawsuits. There's no reason. Look, we're all human, and I think if I've learned anything over the last, I don't know, when did the Jeffrey Epstein thing happen? We're all. It doesn't matter how much money you make. We're all still a bunch of schmoes, right? Right, Bill Gates. Right, Bill Gates? I think we're still a bunch of schmoes. Doesn't matter how many billions you got. So I think it's important that everybody keeps things in perspective and remember that, hey, we are all learning. We've all not necessarily been there. And if you're not growing, then you're dying, right? So you got to be growing. You got to be pushing the boundaries. And I think it's important what you said, that like, hey, it doesn't matter how much success, the Scrub Daddy, Squatty Potty, you, for that matter. I mean, you're probably in the top 5% of most successful businesses that have been on Shark Tank, maybe even less percent. I'm not sure. Not 100% sure that I haven't watched every single pitch.
I told Lori that we were coming after Scrub Daddy's still number one. I told her we're coming for him, and she's like, "Good luck." So I got the little double thumbs there. So.
Well, at the price range, I mean, if you're looking at it from a revenue standpoint, it probably wouldn't be that hard to hit, because I don't know, what's a pack of Scrub Daddies, like $10 or something. So everybody's got windows in houses, Yeah. Everybody needs Scrub Daddies. I love my Scrub Daddies, but $10 versus like $60, $70, it's a lot easier for you to eclipse that revenue number than how many Scrub Daddies. I mean, I can only have so many Scrub Daddies in my house. Like, I got two hands here, all right? And only so many dishes to wash. So anyway, Joe, thank you again for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm honored to be one of your guests, and thank you so much for inviting me.
And shout out to Rebecca from DinoSafe for hooking me up with the connection here to have you on. So thank you so much, Rebecca. Quite appreciate it. And we have more of these Tank Tales coming down the pike. I don't want to jinx it, but Truffle Shuffle, I will be meeting up with them in Philadelphia if everything goes well, and as well as a couple other business owners that have been on Shark Tank in the near future. So make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss those. If you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm so we can get this video and this information into the hands of more super entrepreneurs like yourself. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.